My name is Helen Whitaker, and at 70 years old, I never imagined that the harshest words I'd ever hear would come from my own daughter, the one I raised all by myself. 6 months ago, my daughter Rachel showed up at my door with 2 suitcases and her 2 exhausted children. She had just separated from her husband, who had left her for a younger woman. Her voice trembled as she stood on my porch. "Mom, I don't have anywhere else to go," she said, tears welling up in her eyes. "Just until I can get back on my feet. Since my husband passed away, I'd been living alone in our quiet 5-bedroom house. Most days the place felt far too large and painfully silent. So, of course, I welcomed her in without a second thought. First, it was like the house had come back to life. My grandchildren's laughter echoed through rooms that had been silent for years. Every morning, I made them breakfast, helped with their homework, and read bedtime stories, just like I did for Rachel when she was little. One evening, she wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "Mom, you saved me." For a moment, I truly believed we had found our way back to being a real family again. But that feeling didn't last. Only 2 weeks later, the criticism started. Small things at first. "Mom, could you trim your nails more often? They make you look old then. Mom, maybe you should shower again. Sometimes there's a strange smell. And Mom, those clothes don't look good anymore. You look sloppy." I tried to adapt. I bought new outfits. I started showering twice a day. I even avoided eating near her after she complained that the sound of my chewing bothered her. But the harder I tried to please her, the worse things got. One afternoon, I was outside trimming the roses my husband had planted years ago. I overheard Rachel on the phone with her sister Monica. "I can't stand living with her," Rachel said. "She's disgusting, Monica. The way she eats, coughs, walks. Everything about old people makes me sick. But I need a place to stay until I find a job, so I'm just dealing with it for now." The pruning shears slipped from my hand. I stood there, completely frozen. My own daughter was talking about me like I was something repulsive. That evening, I confronted her calmly. "I overheard your conversation," I said quietly. She just laughed nervously. "I was just venting, Mom. You know I love you." But nothing changed. Soon she started separating my meals from theirs because she said the children were uncomfortable watching me eat. She told me not to sit on the living room couch because I smelled like an old person. Sometimes she even kept the grandchildren away from me. Then one morning in the kitchen, while I was making tea, she finally said the words that shattered everything. "Mom, I can't keep pretending. Your presence disgusts me. The way you breathe, the way you move, it's unbearable. Old people are just unpleasant." Something inside me broke, but my voice stayed calm. "Rachel," I asked quietly, "do I really disgust you?" She hesitated for a moment, then she nodded. That night I made the most decisive choice of my life. I was going to disappear, and I was going to take every single dollar I owned with me. I went upstairs and sat on the edge of the bed where my husband and I used to talk about our daughter's future. Before he passed, he had asked me to take care of Rachel. I had spent my entire life doing just that. But that night, I realized something painful. I had never taken care of myself. From under the bed, I pulled out a small box filled with important documents, the deed to the house. Paperwork for a piece of land my husband had inherited, and bank records I had quietly managed for years. Rachel had no idea. She didn't know that I also owned 2 small rental apartments across town. She thought I was just an elderly widow surviving on a modest pension. She never imagined that I had carefully invested and grown the money her father left behind. The next morning, while Rachel was taking the children to school, I called my lawyer. "I want to sell everything," I told him. "The house, the apartments, the land, all of it." Within a month, every property was sold on for much more than I expected. Rachel was completely oblivious. Then one evening during dinner, I spoke calmly. "Rachel," I said, "I've sold the house." Her fork froze halfway to her mouth. "You did what? There's a new owner? We have 2 weeks before we move out?" Her face turned red with anger. "Mom, you can't make a decision like that without telling me. Where are we supposed to go?" "Where you go is up to you," I replied. "You and the children will need to find a place." Then she said what had truly been on her mind all along. "But my inheritance." I looked directly into her eyes. "Did you really think you could live here and just wait for me to die?" She had no answer. "That money," I said quietly, "was earned by your father and me." It isn't a reward for someone who doesn't know how to show respect. 2 weeks later, before sunrise, I left with a single suitcase. All my savings had already been transferred into a new account under my name alone. I boarded a flight to a quiet coastal town where I had secretly purchased a small cottage by the ocean. I left only a brief note behind. Rachel, I love you. But I didn't live 70 years just to feel unwanted in my own home. It's time for me to choose myself. Life by the sea felt lighter. Every morning I walked along the beach, and in the afternoons I read beneath the shade of palm trees. My new neighbors didn't see me as a burden or an old woman. They simply knew me as Helen, someone who loved gardening and cooking for friends. 3 months later, Rachel finally called. "Mom," she whispered through tears. "We lost the apartment. I don't know what to do." I listened quietly. Then I asked a single question. "Do you have a job yet?" "Yes, a part-time one." "Good," I said gently. "That means you can start rebuilding." She cried and begged for forgiveness, and I did forgive her. But I didn't give her money, and I didn't invite her to move in. Instead, I helped her find a small, affordable apartment through a friend. Because sometimes the greatest lesson a parent can teach is not rescue but responsibility. At 70 years old, I finally understood something important. Love does not mean allowing someone to destroy your dignity, and the money I took with me, that wasn't the real loss my daughter suffered. The real loss was learning far too late that respect is worth more than any inheritance. Thank you for listening to my story. If you found it meaningful, please subscribe for more.